Hey guys, thanks for watching High Five Live. Happy to have you guys with me here tonight. I really touched and feel sentimental tonight. I actually just a few nights ago checked up on a post I'd given, I don't know, maybe a week or so ago, a week and a half ago, about my father Lance, and just how he was always there to watch my athletic events and stuff, and how that was really all that was important to me, is that he was there when I was growing up. That's all it really meant to me. Anyways, I went back to that post and I found that there had been all these comments, and I hadn't visited you guys' comments, so I replied really late to you guys' comments, and I appreciate your comments and things. But I thought, you know what, if the people really like those stories about my dad, I want to give them another, because I love to talk about my dad. So if you guys want to hear the stories, I want to share them with you. I really want to share with you some stories about my dad. So here's one. Here's another one that really touched me. I actually didn't even know this story existed until after my father passed. My father passed when I was in the MTC. Then I went through Uruguay 2 years just believing that he was with me on my mission. It was the coolest feeling. Within my soul, I could feel that my dad was there. I come home. I'm talking to my grandma years later. In fact, this may have been like as little as 1 or 2 years ago, when my grandma says, "Hey, you heard that story about Brother Coronado, right?" I was like, "No." And she's like, Brother Coronado that lives across the street from us, he told us what your dad had done that night to make it to your football game, right? I had never heard this story. My dad never told me anything about this. And I was like, "No, what do you mean, Grandma?" And she's like, "Well, Brother Coronado, he used to sell concessions for Bonneville High School football team. When Bonneville High School was playing their football games, he would be in charge of the concessions of the night. He'd be the last one to close up, last one to leave the stadium in the dead of the night when the stadium lights had all turned off and everything." And I said, "Okay, I didn't know he did that, but okay, yeah." Anyways, at one of my varsity football games when I was in high school, I guess I was playing, and I remember seeing my dad there, and I remember him like giving me this little pump fist, like go get him look whenever I'd meet eyes with him when I was in the field and I'd see him in the stands. Really cool little connection we had there. But yeah, according to Brother Coronado, who lives across the street from my grandparents, he was closing up shop one night, and all the people had left. Everybody was gone. And he was surprised to see one other car in the parking lot beside his own. He says, "Usually when I close up shop, when I get everything cleaned out, the concession stands and everything, everybody else is gone." He said, "I saw one other car there, and I looked around to see who owned that car, who was with that car. And he said, and I saw in the distance," and he was telling this story to my grandma, also the mother of my father. So he said, "I saw in the distance your son and your grandson." He said, "Your son was in so much pain," and I think I told you in a previous post how my dad had health problems his whole life. And so he said, "Your son was in so much pain, he couldn't make it from the football stands back to his own car. And so your grandson, my little brother, who I've talked about in other stories, my football player brother who was a star at BYU. By the way, I think I'm going to get him this weekend to come and talk to us, so I'm excited for that. But my little brother had put my father's arm around him and was shouldering my dad, pulling him, trying to pull my dad towards the car, because my dad was in so much pain he couldn't move. He had sacrificed an entire 3-hour night to watch my varsity football game so that he could see his son play. And then when it was all over, he just sat in the stands, trying not to look conspicuous. And then when it was all over, he kind of turned to my little brother and said, "I can't make it back to the car. You've got to put your arm around me and you've got to carry me." And he never told me. He never told me anything. He passed away, and then about 5 years after he passed, well, it would have been 8 or 9 years after he passed, my grandma tells me this story. And Brother Coronado, who lives across the street from my grandma, had never told my grandma this story until recently, before she told me. And yeah, I thought that was the most touching thing, to know that my father, without letting me know, made an incredible sacrifice of his health to the point where he was in so much pain he couldn't make it back to his car so he could watch me play the football game. And then my little brother carried him, dragged him back to his car. And that means everything to me. To be honest with you, My dad wasn't the most financially smart guy in the world, and we weren't very financially well off as kids growing up. Me and my siblings never had a lot of money, but we were taken care of. You know, he found ways to make things work. They were always in a lot of debt with his hospital bills and things. But honestly, that doesn't matter to me. What matters is that my dad was there, watching my athletic events. He was there, even when it meant that he'd have to act non-conspicuous after the game, wait till everybody had left, and then finally turn to my little brother and say, "You've got to drag me out of this place. You've got to get me back to the car because I have no strength left." So anyways, I just want to give another plug for kind of the same message I gave a week and a half ago. There is nothing like a dad who stays and is there for his kids. And coming from the kid's testimony himself, I'm the oldest son of my father's. That's all that was important to me. I don't care how much debt we were in or how much financial trouble we were in. What mattered to me is that my dad was there, he was watching my game, and that he loved my mom, and that he and my mom stuck together. And because of he and my mom sticking together, you know, if you're Mormon, you go along with this. They were still in the temple. They stuck together forever, and now him having passed away during my mission, I know I have him forever. Why? Because he and my mother were still in the temple together for time and for all eternity. That means everything to me. And so, yeah, in the end, I think what's really going to matter to us is, did we spend time with our families? Were we there for our kids? Were we there for our spouses? In the end, that's it. Much later down the road on Judgment Day, will God ask us other things like, how did you do financially and how did you do with your job? I think he'll ask us, first of all, were you there for your spouse? Were you there for your kids? Do they remember you being there? And that's it. And I just want to share those things with you. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Thank you so much for your support. Please like our page and log in and help us share goodness. Thanks so much, guys.